Alex and Riley had no idea what was in store for them that summer, high up in the mountains of Washington State in that fire tower. It would set their lives on an unexpected path and change their lives forever. It was a path that would lead them to the edge of the paranormal, the strange, and the unknown. You won't believe how this one ends. Alex and Riley were newly graduated forestry students who loved the outdoors and planned to spend their lives together in it. They had met in school, and each of them had years of experience hiking, fishing, and surviving in the wilderness. So the idea of spending 6 months in isolation in the Pacific Northwest was not a daunting decision for them at all. They each would be paid well, and they would gain experience in the wilderness that would help them land jobs in the national park system later on. After months of planning and preparation, they found themselves packing their bags and heading for the forests of Washington State. Their destination was the secluded Hawks Perch Fire Tower, a weather sentinel that had been watching over the wilderness for decades. They would spend April to October in that tower, looking for signs of wildfires and updating the Bureau of Land Management on any important observation while they were out there alone in the wilderness. They would receive monthly supply drops via helicopter due to the remote location of the tower, located at the top of a mountain. Everything else they wanted would need to be hauled up there with them in their Jeep. As they made their way along the winding forest trails, the anticipation of their adventure filled the air. After months of planning, the couple was finally here. The Hawks Perch Fire Tower stood tall against the clear blue sky, its wooden structure showing signs of age, yet exuding a sense of timeless majesty. It seemed solid, like it had always been a part of that mountain. Surrounded by a panoramic view of the dense forest and jagged peaks, it was a vantage point that promised solitude and introspection, just what the couple was looking for. In the tower, Riley found an old picture album with images from the past, going all the way back to when the tower was constructed. In the back of that book was a few pages where previous fire watchers had signed. She was fascinated by the history of that place. So many stories. What would this tower say if it could speak? As they settled into their new home, the couple couldn't help but marvel at their breathtaking surroundings. The grounds around the tower were well maintained. The trees and brush had been cut back to maintain a clear view from the tower. The vast expanse of nature was their constant companion, and as the sun dipped below the horizon on their first evening, they watched in awe as a chorus of crickets and distant howling wolves serenaded them to sleep. Their days settled into a soothing routine. Alex, an aspiring artist, dedicated his mornings to his craft, capturing the natural beauty of the wilderness on canvas or in his sketchbook. Meanwhile, Riley assumed her duties as the main fire lookout, scanning the horizon for any signs of trouble. She felt like she really found her calling up there on that mountain. The fire tower was equipped with a vintage radio, a connection to the outside world. They were to report their observations to the ranger station in the valley below 5 times a day, recording any possible signs of smoke or trouble. They would receive updates on the weather conditions and possible forest fires from the other towers in the area. The radio's soft crackling and occasional bursts of static were their only links to civilization, a reassuring presence in their isolation. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. And soon, the two of them found themselves in the middle of a hot Washington summer. It all started on a calm, clear summer night. Alex and Riley were sitting on the tower's balcony, gazing at the star-studded sky. The forest below was tranquil, the only sounds being rustling leaves and distant animals calling out in the night. That's when Riley heard it. A soft, staticky voice on the radio. It was quiet at first, almost a whisper. Then she heard it again, louder, like a whimper. Riley, thinking it might be a call for help, ran to the radio and called back, only to hear nothing. Soon, she heard a reply from the Valley Ranger station down below, but they reported that they didn't hear the voice that Riley had reported. In fact, no one on the channel reported hearing anything. Riley was shaken by the incident, but Alex seemed to just shrug it off. He told her it was just probably a rogue cell phone signal or something like that. Still, Riley couldn't shake the initial feeling of panic when she heard that voice. Alex thought she was overreacting. The couple got into their first fight since arriving at the tower that night. Riley could not understand why Alex didn't take the voice more seriously. Over the next month or so, Alex drew back into his artwork more and more. He was starting to wander off for hours, looking for different scenery to draw or paint. His art became darker as well. His once beautiful landscapes became dark, shadowy figures hiding amongst the trees. Riley was worried that Alex was not adjusting to the isolation well. He became quiet and distant. They would usually split their duties watching the surrounding horizons for fires, but Riley was left to pick up the slack. This left Riley in the tower most days, by herself. She began to strike up conversations with other fire towers in the area on the radio to pass the time. That's when she met Blake. They would chat more and more on a private channel together, talking about their favorite national parks or most memorable hiking trips. Riley assures me that it was never a romantic thing. She just told me she was lonely, and being stuck in a tower up on a mountain wears you down a little each day. Either way, it was just nice to have someone to talk to keep her mind from wandering. One night, as Alex slept inside, Riley went out onto the balcony. She couldn't sleep, and the night air felt nice. She sipped on her tea and looked out into the forest below. She's not sure how long she was staring off into the darkness that night. She sort of lost track of time. But at some point, she saw the shape. What was that? It was tall and lean. Judging from the trees it was next to, it had to be at least 7 feet tall. And lanky. Its arms stretched abnormally long, almost past its knees. She had never seen anything like it. At first she thought it might be a bear with mange, but it stayed on its back legs way too long. As she was staring at the strange shape, she slowly realized that the radio was making an odd sound. It was a high-pitched whine and flicker. And then the low voice was back. What was it saying? She realized it was saying, "Go inside." She turned and stared at the radio, and by the time she looked back down at the shape, it was gone. No, not gone. Just moved. It was at the base of the tower now, looking up, right at her. She ran into the cab of the tower and slammed the door, waking up Alex. Disoriented and confused, Alex stumbled out of bed. Riley grabbed him and then ducked down behind the small table. They heard the slow, thumping of footsteps climbing up the stairs outside. Whatever it was got past the first gate at the bottom. It slowly made its way up to the top. The top gate door slammed closed as whatever it was entered the balcony. Thump, thump, thump. It walked around the windows, scraping the walls as it traversed around the cab at the tower. The radio hissed again and whined. Then, a familiar voice came over the radio. It was Blake. He announced that he could see the thing outside from his tower and wanted to know if they were safe. Riley slowly reached up and grabbed the receiver to answer back. He told them to grab their keys and wait for his signal to run down to their Jeep. Alex retrieved the backpack they prepared as a go bag and got the keys ready. Once the footsteps were on the opposite side of the tower, Blake yelled to go through the speakers. Alex and Riley ran. They ran out the door. They ran down the stairs. They ran to the Jeep. Riley hazarded a glance up at the tower. She saw the shape looking down at her from the top of the railing, right before she jumped into the passenger seat. They barreled down the mountain. They had a few close calls with the road that night before arriving in town below in the valley safely. The next day, Riley told me 2 rangers went up to the tower to investigate. They said that they found signs of a bear and that the couple's food supply had been raided. Riley silently disagreed. She told me it was not a bear that she saw that night. She still has no idea what that thing was. Riley suspects that whatever it was had something to do with Alex's mood change and art style that summer, although she does confess she has no idea what could do that. When Riley asked about Blake and wanting to thank him, the two rangers looked confused. There was no one named Blake in any of the towers this season. Riley went back up to the tower the next day to finish her commitment, but Alex had had enough of the wilderness and the isolation. He flew back home that week. He never worked for the Forestry Service again. The couple broke up that fall. Riley said it was amicable and that they still talk on occasion. Riley finished out the fire season in Hawks Perch Fire Tower that year. She never saw the shape again. She told me that she would stay up at night listening to the static on the radio, waiting to hear Blake's voice again over the airwaves. But she never did. Before she left that tower, she flipped through the picture album again to sign in the back. There, she found a picture from the early 70s. A picture of a ranger named Blake Wilson. He was a tall, handsome man, about Riley's age, with shaggy blonde hair, his face lit up by a goofy smile. Apparently, Blake Wilson had been killed by a falling log while maintaining the property around the tower in 1972. You have been listening to The Night Signal. If you have a story like this one you would like to be made into a video, you can submit it by emailing to broadcaster7@thenightsignal.com. Or you can visit my newly redesigned website at thenightsignal.com. We have our ARG going on right now, so jump in and follow the clues. You might win some free merch. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoy our content. Your support helps keep the Night Signal broadcasting. And as always, this is Broadcaster 7 asking, are you receiving the Night Signal?